are going to win this NIT preseason championship.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of hard work, but I think in the end, all the hard work paid off.
Block shot. Indiana's going to win it. They win. Indiana wins. A block shot by Henderson, and the Hoosiers have won it. The final score, 76-75. What a triumph here tonight.
I feel like, part of the family, and we do have a family here at Indiana University.
Nobody's going to have any type of respect for you in this league, unless you establish yourself.
Indiana over Michigan State and the undisputed Big Ten champions of the conference.
It's something we've been working hard for 4 years, and it was good to see that dream become reality.
Baseline, pulls up, scoop, shot, good!
Indiana basketball, 1992-93, a championship commitment. When the season began for the Indiana Hoosiers, that's what they were looking for, championships. And when you saw the names of Calbert Cheaney, Greg Graham, Matt Nover, Chris Reynolds, Alan Henderson, and Damon Bailey on the roster, Hoosier fans knew that this could be a special season, especially after Indiana advanced to the Final Four the year before. The Hoosiers championships included the preseason NIT, their own 2 in-season tournaments, and the outright Big Ten title, the 11th during the night era at IU. Indiana fell just short of reaching the Final Four for the second consecutive year, losing in the Midwest Regional Finals. But this Indiana team gave IU fans nothing to hang their heads about after a year that will go down as one of the best ever in school and Big Ten history.
We're set for college basketball. The 92-93 season tips off at Assembly Hall.
Indiana got a jump on the season by playing in the preseason NIT, a tournament in which they had advanced to the finals 4 years earlier, only to lose both games in New York. This team was primed not to let that happen again. A national television audience tuned in for the first game of the season against Murray State in Assembly Hall, and a balanced Hoosier attack led by Greg Graham's 22 points paced Indiana to a 103-80 victory as the Hoosiers shot 53% from the field and forced Murray State into 26 turnovers. Calbert Cheaney and Alan Henderson each had 13 points, while Henderson picked up where he left off in 1992, grabbing a team-high 9 rebounds. 2 nights later, the Hoosiers hosted Tulane in the tournament quarterfinals. Tulane was a quick, aggressive team and had been picked by many to finish near the top of the Metro Conference. The Green Wave hung tough early, but a 23-8 run by the Hoosiers gave them a 54-28 halftime lead. Midway through the second half, Damon Bailey hit a 3-point shot that gave the Hoosiers an 84-49 lead. The 35-point margin was the largest of the game, and Hoosier fans were thinking of spending Thanksgiving in New York. The Green Wave had other ideas. Over the next 8 minutes, Tulane started shooting threes and left its starters into play against Indiana's bench. Bob Knight put the starters back into the game with a 94-77 lead, but Tulane never gave up. The result after this Pointer Williams basket was an 8-point Indiana lead at 94-86 with just 2:36 left to go in the game. Indiana answered with the next 3 baskets to put the game out of reach, and the Hoosiers were off to New York for the NIT Final Four. The Hoosiers' first opponent in Madison Square Garden would be a familiar one, Florida State. Indiana had knocked the Seminoles out of the last 2 NCAA tournaments, and revenge had to be on the minds of Pat Kennedy and the Florida State players. Indiana held an 8-7 lead when Calbert Cheaney hit a 3-pointer that started a 14-0 IU run, which ended with this Greg Graham layup with 12:11 left in the half. Florida State came right back and finished the half with a 30-17 run, cutting the Hoosiers' lead to 39-37 at the break. Florida State had trouble containing Cheney, however, as he tallied 17 points in the first 20 minutes. A Sam Cassell layup at the start of the second half tied the game, and the Seminoles used that momentum to take a 56-44 lead in the first 8 minutes of the second half. Cassell was the catalyst of the FSU attack, scoring 11 points during the run. Although Calbert Cheaney was enjoying the best game of his Indiana career, it was Pat Graham that brought the Hoosiers back into the ballgame. The junior from Floyd Knobs, Indiana, was seeing significant minutes for the first time in 2 years after missing the previous season with a broken foot. Graham came into the game with the Hoosiers down 56-46 and helped IU tie the game at 62 with 5:06 remaining. And the game went to overtime, tied at 69.
Pat Graham has been a big plus off the bench.
In the overtime period, the teams exchanged baskets until Cheney hit 2 free throws with 1:26 to give Indiana a lead they would never give up. Then, it happened again.
Look at Pat Graham. Graham is hurt. I don't know what happened, but this does not look good. He is holding his foot up in the air. Whether it's a knee or an ankle, we do not know. But if it's the foot that he broke earlier, twice this has been a problem, that could be real bad news for IU.
It was bad news. The foot was broken. Graham would be lost for most of the season. The Hoosiers were forced to move ahead to the finals against Seton Hall without the man who had got them there. Bob Knight said the game against Seton Hall would be a tough one, and he was exactly right. The Pirates were bigger, but Indiana had Calbert Cheaney. The senior helped the Hoosiers to a quick 15-3 lead, and they extended that to a 29-16 advantage midway through the first half. IU held an 11-point lead with 6:48 to go, but the Pirates came back, as had been the case in the first 3 games, and the Hoosiers held a 37-33 lead at the break. Answering the call of his coach, Cheney made himself difficult to guard and scored 16 points in the first 20 minutes. As in the Florida State game, IU lost its lead in the first 3 minutes of the half when Terry DeHare hit a 3-pointer to give Seton Hall the lead. A back-and-forth game quickly became a 6-point Seton Hall lead when Danny Hurley hit a 3-pointer with 12:29 to go. Not to be fazed, Indiana scored the next 7 points and took the lead back at a Cheney 3-pointer at the 10:22 mark. The Hoosiers increased that lead to 7 when freshman Brian Evans hit a 3-pointer to complete a 13-1 run over 4 minutes. Indiana enjoyed a 9-point lead for a brief time, but when Seton Hall closed to 3, Cheney hit 2 free throws to kick the lead back up to 5. The Hoosiers made 5 of their last 6 free throws in the waning minutes and claimed the preseason NIT championship.
That's the ball game, and the Hoosiers walk out of Madison Square Garden in the Big Apple with the preseason NIT championship as they start the campaign 4-0 against some very good competition on the young year.
Cheney was simply unstoppable this night. He tallied a career-high 36 points, breaking the mark of 34 he had set 2 nights earlier. Cheney was voted the most valuable player of the tournament in an obvious selection as he led Indiana to its first preseason tournament title in school history. A show of true sportsmanship on the plane ride home, Cheney awarded his MVP trophy to Pat Graham, saying if it were not for Pat's play in the second half of the Florida State game, the Hoosiers wouldn't have been in the final against Seton Hall. The Hoosiers found themselves with a 4-0 record and were ranked number 1 in the country by CNN USA Today's poll before a vast majority of teams had even started their season. Indiana took that number 1 ranking into the Hoosier Dome and a date with number 2 Kansas before a crowd of over 31,000 in the Bank One Classic. An Alan Henderson jumper and a Greg Graham 3-pointer with 11:43 to go in the first half turned a tight 2-point game into a 22-15 Indiana lead. Indiana seemed to have a firm grasp on the game late in the first half when Matt Nover converted a 3-point play to increase IU's lead to 40-31 with 1:24 to go. As had been the case in the first 4 games, IU let Kansas back into the contest. A 3-pointer by Steve Woodbury and free throws by Rex Walters and Adonis Jordan cut the lead to 40-38 at halftime. The lead that was 9 late in the half turned into a 1-point deficit when Jordan hit a 3-pointer only 16 seconds into the second half. 4 minutes later, baskets by Bailey and Nover gave Indiana a 3-point lead. But just 3 minutes later, Walters hit a 3-pointer to tie the game at 58, and Kansas went on from there to take a 64-58 lead. Indiana stormed back and went on an 11-2 run, capped by a Matt Nover jumper, giving Indiana a 69-66 lead with a little over 3 minutes remaining. Little did anyone know that would be the last points of the game for the Hoosiers.
Kansas Kansas has the 1-point lead and the basketball.
The Jayhawks were up by 1 when Walters hit this running jumper in the lane to give KU a 72-69 lead, and with 2 more free throws at the end, Kansas walked away with a 74-69 win. Indiana hurt themselves by making only 4 of 13 free throws, and Greg Graham's 8 points were the only points off the bench for the Hoosiers. Two days later, the Hoosiers were off to South Bend to play Notre Dame and were looking to get back on track. Indiana seemed to show no ill effects of the loss to Kansas as they jumped on the Irish early and held a 24-11 lead at the halfway point of the first half. IU extended the lead to 17 when Chris Reynolds hit Calbert Cheaney with this pretty pass that made the score 35-18 with 5:20 to go. And the 17-point lead was the largest of the half for the Hoosiers. Once again, IU let their opponent back into the game, and 3-pointers by Carl Cozen and Lamar Justice helped the Irish. When the half ended, Indiana found themselves with a 10-point lead. The scrappy Irish never gave up and kept shooting threes and playing tough defense. Ryan Hoover hit a 3-point shot at 9:58 to tie the game at 58, and Notre Dame wasted no time in taking the lead as Joe Ross hit a free throw just seconds later to give the Irish a 59-58 advantage. Indiana head coach Bob Knight found himself without one of his best perimeter defensive players when Greg Graham fouled out with a little over 6 minutes to go in the game, and with the Irish shooting threes almost every time down the floor. Notre Dame took a 69-67 lead with 3 minutes to go when Carl Cozen hit another 3. Indiana showed that they had range as well from behind the 19-9 stripe as Calbert Cheaney connected on a bomb, giving the Hoosiers a 70-69 lead. Missed shots and turnovers were the order of the last minute, and the Hoosiers had a chance to seal the victory with a possession with under a minute left. The Irish kept up the defensive pressure, not allowing the Hoosiers to work the ball inside for an easy shot or to hit a 3-pointer. Matt Nover came to the rescue with 2 seconds remaining on the shot clock and 17 seconds on the game clock as he hit a turnaround jumper from 16 feet to give the game to Indiana. The Hoosiers return home to Assembly Hall for the first time since the second game of the NIT to face Western Michigan in the Indiana Classic. Indiana had won the previous 18 tournaments, and when this one was over, it was time for another trophy. Cheney and Henderson were named co-MVPs of the tournament, and Chris Reynolds was also named to the all-tournament team. Cheney and Henderson each scored 38 points, while Henderson grabbed 22 rebounds in the 2 games. Reynolds set a career high with 16 points against Austin Peay on 7 of 7 field goals. Indiana took the next week off for final exams before facing nationally ranked Cincinnati in Assembly Hall. The Bearcats were looking for revenge after IU's easy win in Cincinnati last season, but it was not to be as the Hoosier defense put its best foot forward. IU held Cincinnati to only 21% shooting in the first half and forced the Bearcats into 11 turnovers en route to a 38-18 halftime lead. The second half was no different as Indiana held the Bearcats at bay, allowing them no closer than 13 points. Cincinnati shot only 34% for the game, and the vaunted Bearcat defense proved to be no match for the Hoosiers' motion offense. All 5 Indiana starters scored in double figures, with Cheney leading the way with 17 points.
It's been a successful program here at Indiana. Look at
Another rematch from the previous year was up next at Assembly Hall as St. John's Redmond came to town on a rare Midwest trip. The first half proved to be a Calbert Cheaney and Graham show as they scored 21 and 17 points respectively. A Cheney dunk with 3:38 left gave Indiana a 57-29 lead, and the game was basically in the hands of the Hoosiers. IU shot 63% in the first half, while the Redmen could shoot only 38% from the field. The game remained the same in the second half, the Hoosiers building to a 33-point lead, winning 105-80. For the second consecutive game, Indiana's 5 starters scored in double figures, with Calbert Cheaney leading the way with 23 and Alan Henderson and Graham each scoring 20. Henderson also pulled down 14 rebounds, while Pat Knight had one of his best games of the season, dishing out a career-high 6 assists. The word title and champions came back to the ears of Hoosier fans as IU traveled to Indianapolis for the 11th annual Hoosier Classic in Market Square Arena. The Hoosiers had ended the calendar year with 3 championships, but bigger and better things lay ahead for IU. There was only one more non-conference game to go, and that was a big one in Louisville against Kentucky. In this game the year before, Kentucky's three-pointers beat Indiana's free throws, and everyone waited to see what would transpire in this contest before a packed house in Freedom Hall. Indiana went out to a 10-4 lead 3 minutes into the game when Matt Nover hit this layup. But that's when Kentucky's three-point barrage started, and they made 8 consecutive three-pointers and a total of 10 for the half. IU weathered the storm to trail by just 6 points at the break. Kentucky maintained a 5 to 7 point lead during the first 10 minutes of the second half before Indiana started to rally. Alan Henderson made 2 free throws, and a Cheney jumper 30 seconds later cut the lead to 2 at 62-60. Indiana took its first lead of the second half with 6:15 to go when Cheney hit this three-pointer. Chris Reynolds helped increase the IU lead with a layup at 4:47 for a 71-67 advantage. Kentucky then went on a 12-5 run that included 2 three-pointers by Jamal Mashburn and one by Roderick Rhodes to take a 79-76 lead. Henderson cut the lead to 1 with this layup with 32 seconds to go, but Travis Ford hit these 2 free throws to give the game to the Wildcats. Calbert Cheaney and Matt Nover each had 29 points for the Hoosiers. Cheney made a career-best 5 three-pointers, while Nover's 29 points was a career high. As in the Kansas game, missed free throws hurt Indiana. IU made only 18 of 36 from the charity stripe, including 13 of 20 by Nover. Kentucky also had its troubles from the line, going 9 of 17 from the line, but made 16 three-pointers, the most any team would make against Indiana all season. Indiana had finished the non-conference season 11-2 and now prepared for the Big Ten. The Iowa Hawkeyes came into Bloomington with a perfect 11-0 record and a lofty national ranking. And the Hawks showed they were worthy of their billing, jumping out to an 8-point lead at 19-11. Indiana then went on a 9-0 run that was capped by this Damon Bailey three-pointer at 6:03, giving Indiana its first lead of the game at 20-19. Another three-pointer by Bailey started a 9-1 Indiana run, and the Hoosiers led at halftime 33-26. There were 7 lead changes in the half, and Bailey scored 12 points in only 10 minutes of play. Iowa out-rebounded the Hoosiers 21-12 in the first 20 minutes, but the Hoosier defense helped keep things close as they forced the Hawkeyes into 14 first-half turnovers.
5-second call.
Indiana started the second half like they ended the first half, going on an 8-4 run to push the lead out to 11 points at 41-30. Iowa fought back and trimmed the lead to 6, but another run by the Hoosiers, capped by this layup by Calbert Cheaney, gave IU a 48-35 lead with a little over 12 minutes left. Iowa got no closer than 5, and this Cheney free throw and layup sealed Indiana's first conference victory of the season. After starting most of the campaign, Damon Bailey and Greg Graham came off the bench against the Hawkeyes and made big contributions. Bailey scored 21 points and made 5 of 7 three-pointers, while Graham added 17 points. Indiana then played host to Penn State in the Nittany Lions' first ever Big Ten road game, and the Hoosiers proved to be not the best of hosts as they defeated the Lions 105-57. For the second consecutive game, Bailey and Greg Graham came off the bench and ignited the Hoosier attack. Bailey scored a season-high 28 points on 9 of 11 field goals and was 7 of 9 from the free throw line. Graham added 19 points on 8 of 11 field goals and made 3 of 6 three-pointers. The Hoosiers amassed a 33-point halftime lead as they turned 10 Penn State turnovers into 19 points while committing only 3 first-half turnovers themselves. Every Indiana player scored in the game, and IU tallied 24 assists, including 6 by Bailey and 5 by Brian Evans. Indiana was now 2-0 in the conference, but a 3-game road trip to Michigan, Illinois, and Purdue loomed on the horizon. The first stop was a showdown in Ann Arbor against Michigan. The game between the top 2 teams in the conference and 2 of the nation's best teams proved to be one to remember in Chrysler Arena. Indiana took a unique approach to the game, guarding the lane and Michigan's powerful inside game on defense while spreading the floor on offense. During the first 12 minutes, neither team led by more than 4 points. Greg Graham, starting for the first time in 3 games, stepped up and hit a three-pointer with a little over 4 minutes to go in the half to give the Hoosiers a 29-24 lead. 30 seconds later, Brian Evans nailed a 3 to put the Hoosiers up by 6. Damon Bailey, also back in the starting 5, hit a 3 with a minute and a half to go, and after a late Michigan basket, the Hoosiers took a 37-31 lead into the locker room. The Hoosiers surged ahead to a 43-33 advantage on a Greg Graham dunk just a minute and a half into the second half. Michigan then took the game into their own hands and came back with a 9 straight-point effort to cut the lead to 1. An Alan Henderson dunk stopped the run, but Chris Webber hit a three-pointer to tie the game at 45 with 15:40 left. From that point on, no team had a bigger than 4-point lead, and during the remainder of the game, there was 13 lead changes and 9 ties.
This has just been a marvelous run for both ball clubs.
With 2:30 remaining, Jalen Rose scored to put the Wolverines up 75-74. At the 1:36 mark, Henderson hit this jumper, giving IU a 76-75 lead. But the final seconds of the game was a game of its own. Todd Leary was at the free throw line with a chance to put the Hoosiers up by 3, but a lane violation before the first free throw gave the ball back to the Wolverines for a chance to win the contest.
Here's the pass into Rose. Here comes Rose up the floor. 10 seconds. Rose drives against Graham, brings it back out. 7 seconds. Rose in the paint. Kicks it in the corner. Bosco with a 3. No good. Batted away. Block shot. Indiana's going to win it. They win. Indiana wins. A block shot by Henderson, and the Hoosiers have won it. The final score is 76-75. What a triumph here tonight as Indiana walks out of Chrysler Arena in Ann Arbor with a 1-point victory. 76-75, the Hoosiers over Michigan.
Henderson's block of Weber's last-second shot gave the Hoosiers the victory and an early lead in the conference race. Henderson came out of his shooting slump to make 10 of 15 field goals and lead IU with 22 points and 8 rebounds while blocking 5 shots. As it would turn out, Indiana would be the only team all season to beat Michigan in Ann Arbor. 4 nights later, the Hoosiers had to travel to Champaign to face the Fighting Illini. Head coach Bob Knight was worried about a letdown by his team after the emotional win at Michigan, and he might have been right as the Hoosiers shot only 39% in the first half and found themselves down 32-31. With 9 minutes to go in the game, Andy Kaufman hit a three-pointer to put Illinois up 62-59. Indiana had not been at their best from the foul line in the first 3 games of the conference season, shooting less than 70%. But in this game, the Hoosiers went to the line and made their free throws and started to build a lead. The free throws helped, but a three-pointer by Bryant Evans at 4:27 capped a 16-5 run, and an Alan Henderson free throw gave IU a 75-67 lead. During the last 7:22 of the contest, Indiana was 13 of 14 from the line, including 10 of 10 during one stretch. Illinois cut the lead to 1 on this drive by Brooks Taylor with 2:15 to go, but Cheney made 4 free throws in the next minute to seal the victory. Cheney scored 30 points to lead the Hoosiers and made a career-high 14 of 16 from the line. Todd Leary and Bryant Evans helped Indiana off the bench. Evans had 15 points and 8 rebounds, while Leary scored 11. Indiana then took its perfect record to West Lafayette for a showdown with Purdue and the first matchup since their high school days between Alan Henderson and Glenn Robinson. The matchup never materialized, and the game turned into the Calbert Cheaney show as he scored 33 points and grabbed 10 rebounds to lead the Hoosiers to victory. Cheney helped IU get out to a 25-10 lead when he hit a jumper with 9:41 to go in the first half. Both teams then went into a shooting slump, but Cheney broke the dry spell with a three-pointer off a pass from Pat Knight to stop a small Purdue run, and the Hoosiers led 28-17. Cheney went on to score 19 points in the first half as Indiana held Purdue to only 24% from the field and to force 12 turnovers in the first half. The Hoosiers returned home for the first time in 2 weeks for a nationally televised contest against Ohio State. Indiana turned an 8-point halftime lead into a blowout in the second half as they outscored the Buckeyes 56-37 in the final 20 minutes. Alan Henderson hit a three-point play at the 17:21 mark that capped a 9-2 Indiana run, and the Hoosiers found themselves up 49-34. Ohio State's Greg Simpson then scored 5 consecutive points and cut the lead to 8. Indiana exploded for a 19-2 run to put the game out of reach, and from that point on, they held at least a 20-point lead and went on to a 96-69 victory. The Hoosiers were now 6-0 in the conference at the 1/3 point of the Big Ten campaign, and fans were starting to talk about the possibility of the first perfect season since the 1975 and 1976 Hoosier teams went 18-0. But there was still a long way to go in this season, and the Hoosiers found out how tough things can be just 3 nights later. The Gophers came into Bloomington looking for respect and picked up a large dose in a hurry as they jumped out to a 16-4 lead after Ariel McDonald made a layup with 14:33 to go in the half. The 12-point deficit was the largest of the season for Indiana at home, and a big comeback was needed to pull this one out. Enter Greg Graham. Despite Graham's effort, IU trailed Minnesota at the half by 5 and continued to trail until the final 4.5 minutes. From there, the struggle continued, but the Hoosiers found a way to win. Minnesota mistakes then guaranteed the triumph. After coming away with a victory over Minnesota, the Hoosiers took a break as they went to Evanston to play Northwestern. Calbert Cheaney put on a show in the second half as he scored 19 points in an 11-minute stretch to finish the game with 22 points. Greg Graham added 21, while Todd Leary and Brian Evans again came off the bench to spark IU. Evans had 11 points and 6 rebounds, while Leary added 10. The Hoosiers continued to be hot from the charity stripe as they made 35 of 41 free throws and cruised to a 93-71 victory.
He's got his from the outside as Indiana starts to pull.
After the victory, Indiana was 19-2 and 8-0 in the Big Ten and were ranked number 1 in both polls. It was the first time in 10 years the Hoosiers had been ranked at the top of the charts in the Associated Press poll. Indiana took their newfound number 1 ranking into Carver Hawkeye Arena to face the Iowa Hawkeyes. It was an emotional night in Iowa City as the crowd paid tribute to Iowa's Chris Street, who had been tragically killed in an auto accident just a few weeks earlier. Iowa used that emotion to jump out to a 19-9 lead on the shoulders of big center A.C. Earl, who scored the last 6 points of the run. Indiana tied the game at 24 when Greg Graham hit this layup with 5:49 to go and took its first lead when Todd Leary made this layup a minute and a half later, and the Hoosiers went on to hold a 38-37 halftime lead. The second half was a showcase for Calbert Cheaney as he went 5 of 5 from the field, including making 2 3-pointers. His first 2 field goals broke ties, while his third and fourth baskets gave Indiana a lead. His final basket of the game extended IU's lead to 3 and would be one of the Hoosiers would never give up. At the end, Indiana made 10 of its last 12 points from the foul line, with Graham making 7 and Bailey hitting 3 as the Hoosiers held on for a 73-66 win. Indiana was now 9-0 and at the halfway mark of the conference season. The pressure seemed to be building for an undefeated Big Ten campaign, and once again the Hoosiers were challenged on the road at Penn State. IU's first ever trip into Happy Valley seemed to be an easy assignment for IU. Indiana had defeated Penn State 105-57 earlier in the campaign, and when the Hoosiers went up by 7 in the first half, everything was falling into place for another victory. Penn State then cut the lead to 2 at the half, and it was a ball game once again.
And they're smelling upset.
The Lions roared out of halftime and scored the first 5 points of the second half to take the lead. In the second half, there were 11 lead changes and 7 ties, and no team had larger than a 5-point lead over the last 15 minutes. Just 24 seconds to go, Penn State up by 4. Greg Graham went the length of the court for a layup to cut the lead to 2, and the Hoosiers called a timeout. Indiana had a chance to win the game at the end when Graham went up for a 3-pointer from the corner with less than a second on the clock. He missed the shot but was fouled by Greg Bartram and went to the foul line for 3 foul shots and another chance to win the game.
We're going to head another session.
Deron Hayes made a jumper with 2:57 to go in the first extra period to cap a 6-0 run for the Lions, but Todd Leary answered with a 3-pointer to cut the lead to 3. The teams traded baskets over the next 2 minutes until Bailey tied the contest with a 3-pointer at 77 with 41 seconds left.
How big
is that the wonder kid that he watched since junior high ties the game for Bob Knight.
The second overtime had 3 lead changes and 3 ties, but Penn State held a 4-point lead with 1:31 to go. Indiana fought back, and Cheney hit this layup with 55 seconds left to give Indiana a lead. With the game tied, the Hoosiers had one last chance. The final, IU 88, Penn State 84.
Seconds left. Penn State uses the timeout.
It scored only 1 goal from the floor.
Indiana faced the long-awaited return match with Michigan, but this time it was in Assembly Hall. The Hoosiers now had a 2-game lead in the conference race as the Michigan Wolverines had lost to Iowa a few weeks earlier. Michigan looked like the better team in this afternoon as they jumped out to a 13-point lead at the midway point of the first half after Jimmy King converted this dunk with 9:51 to go. Over the next 6 minutes, Indiana could get no closer than 5 points. Calbert Cheaney then led an Indiana rally that resulted in an 11-3 run by the Hoosiers to pull within 2 at halftime. Madden tied the game in the first possession of the second half, but when the second TV timeout of the half occurred at 11:32, Michigan led by 9 at 70-61, and things looked bleak at best for the Hoosiers. Indiana then went on a furious run, and on this jumper by Graham at 6:19, tied the game at 76. Indiana took its first lead since early in the second half in this Bryant Evans three-pointer at 79-78. Indiana's defense held Michigan without a point for almost 5 minutes, and when they finally scored, Indiana was up 89-78. Over that 5-minute span, Indiana had gone on a 28-8 run and had forced Michigan into 4 turnovers. Although the Hoosiers were up by 11 with a minute to go, the game wasn't over as Michigan tried to hit 3-pointers and then foul Indiana. With 31 seconds to go, Graham fouled Weber on a 3-point attempt, and Weber made 2 of the 3 free throws to cut the lead to 5 at 91-86. 6 seconds later, Calbert Cheaney missed 2 free throws, and Michigan was gunning for 3. Every time they missed, they would get the rebound and try another. It finally worked with 5 seconds left when King connected from long distance to cut the lead to 2. Bryant Evans was then fouled, and he capped a 17-point performance by making both free throws to give the Hoosiers a 4-point lead with 2 seconds left. A 3-pointer by Chris Weber at the buzzer didn't make any difference, and the Hoosiers had won 93-92, and it opened up a 3-game lead in the conference standings. Another mountain to climb came 3 nights later against Illinois, which was still in this Big Ten race. As with the first game, Coach Bob Knight was worried about how the team would play following another emotional win over Michigan. As it turned out, he really didn't have to. Graham's free throws with 7:44 to go in the first half gave Indiana a 20-point lead at 32-12, and the Hoosiers showed they were ready to play. In the first half alone, Indiana converted 14 Illinois turnovers into 15 points as they were up 54-33 at halftime. Illinois got no closer than 15 in the second half as Indiana went on a 93-72 victory run and were now 12-0 in the conference. Calbert Cheaney led the Hoosiers with 29 points and 9 rebounds, while Graham added 18 points for Indiana. Everything was going according to plan for the Hoosiers as they were now 12-0 in the league and still number 1 in the nation as Purdue was next on the schedule. The attitude changed from one of happiness, however, to one of shock and disappointment just 2 days before the game when Alan Henderson, the team's leading rebounder and third leading scorer, went down in practice with a knee injury. The Hoosiers were already thin in the front court, and now players like freshman Bryant Evans would have to step up and play an increased role. Although the Hoosiers lost Henderson, Pat Graham was ready to return to the lineup, getting the Hoosiers back to 9 players. Graham's return had been planned for 2 weeks and had nothing to do with Henderson's injury. His presence would be a positive factor, but would not make up for the Henderson loss. Replacing Henderson in the lineup for Purdue was Damon Bailey, who moved to a forward spot and was assigned the challenge of guarding Glenn Robinson. 8 minutes into the game, the contest was tied at 18. Pat Graham made his return to action and let his presence be known immediately, scoring on a driving layup just seconds after entering the contest. From that point on, Indiana built a 15-point lead, which Purdue trimmed to 7 at the break. 5 minutes into the second half, Purdue's Conzo Martin made a layup. and suddenly the Hoosier lead was down to 3 and the Boilermakers appeared ready to make a charge. Brian Evans stepped up and hit a three-pointer at the 13-minute mark and the Hoosier lead was back to 8. Greg Graham then keyed the triumph, making 16 of 18 free throws in the second half and 26 of 28 for the game, setting a Big Ten and Indiana record. With the help of the free throws, he scored a career-high 32 points. Brian Evans added 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in sealing the win.
Nice kiss and kiss.
2 days later, the Hoosiers took their 13-0 record into Columbus to play the Ohio State Buckeyes, a team that they had beaten by 27 points a month earlier. In 1991-92, IU had problems on the road in conference games in which they had defeated a team by a large margin at home. And when Ohio State led 15-12 early in the contest, the Hoosiers knew they were going to have a fight on their hands. They responded and took a 29-15 lead over the next 6 minutes and slowly increased it to a 41-27 advantage after Brian Evans hit this three-pointer with 2:49 to go. Ohio State came back with a 9-2 run to finish the half, and the Hoosiers led 43-36 at the break. Turnovers plagued Indiana in the first 20 minutes, with 11 miscues leading to 13 Ohio State points. This Calbert Cheaney jumper with 8:56 to go in the game gave Indiana a 61-53 lead. But little did anyone know that that would be the last field goal the Hoosiers would score in regulation. With 3 seconds remaining, Jamie Skelton, who saves his best game for Indiana each year, hit this three-pointer to put the Buckeyes up 71-70. But the Hoosiers had one last chance.
They're releasing Cheney, throwing a baseball pass. They get a foul! I can't believe it! They set it up and they get a foul! Incredible! Oh, a no-no, buddy. Here goes Reynolds on the free throw line.
He made the first, but when the second wouldn't go,
we're going OT, baby!
Davis.
as in the Penn State game, Ohio State scored the first 6 points of the extra period. Brian Evans' layup completed a 6-0 Indiana run to tie the game at 77. Skelton then hit a three-pointer with 40 seconds left to put the Buckeyes up 80-77. Indiana had its chances toward the end, but could not convert, and the Hoosiers' winning streak and chance at an undefeated conference season ended 81-77.
It is the most anticipated.
There was little time to regroup as the Hoosiers next traveled to Minnesota 4 days later to face the fired-up Gophers. IU found itself in another war, the Gophers keeping the lead at 5 much of the first half before IU began a run. Damon Bailey came off the bench and made a field goal to cut the lead to 3, and with 3 minutes to go into the half, Todd Leary converted a three-point play after a driving layup to tie the game. Minnesota then scored the next 5 points, but Greg Graham hit a three-pointer and 2 free throws to tie it at 39. Minnesota didn't know what hit them in the second half. The Hoosiers came out with an 11-point run and held the Gophers without a basket for the first 4 minutes. This Graham breakaway dunk gave the Hoosiers a 17-point lead at 60-43, and when the run was done, the Hoosiers had outscored Minnesota 26-4. The IU lead was right at 10 for the Hoosiers most of the second half, but Randy Carter hit this lay-in to carve it to 6, and Graham answered with a layup, the Hoosiers making their free throws at the end and salting away an 86-75 victory. Indiana now returned home with a chance to clinch a tie for the conference title against Northwestern. And although the Hoosiers disposed of the Wildcats 98-69, the night belonged to Calbert Cheaney. Cheney came into the game needing only 7 points to break the Indiana all-time scoring record and 10 points to surpass Glenn Rice for the conference scoring title. And he wasted little time in breaking that first mark. He scored the first 3 baskets of the game for IU, breaking the record held by Steve Alford. He then looked tentative as he was only a 3-pointer away from the Big Ten mark. With 9:18 to go in the half, he had a chance to tie Rice with 2 free throws, but missed them both. Then the record fell.
Bailey, left side to Calbert. Calbert doesn't take the long one, gives back to Damon. Now back to Calbert. He fires a 3. Got it! There it is! Cheney's 12th point of the ball game, and he is the new career scoring champion for the Big Ten.
Cheney scored a Big Ten career-high 35 points in the game, and in the second half, official Ed Hightower presented the game ball to him during a timeout. The victory gave the Hoosiers a tie for the league crown and a spot in the NCAA tournament. It was the 11th title for head coach Bob Knight, the most by any Big Ten coach, and the 19th by Indiana, the most by any conference school. The Hoosiers were now going for the outright championship against Michigan State. The Hoosiers left little doubt in the minds of fans as to who would win this game, as Pat Graham scored 5 consecutive points to give Indiana a 23-12 lead. By the time Graham hit this three-pointer with 7 minutes to go, the Hoosiers were up 39-18. Indiana did not have a turnover in the first half, while great ball movement added 14 assists. And IU extended its lead to as many as 35 in the second half and cruised to a 99-68 victory and the Big Ten title outright.
The final score, 99-68. Indiana over Michigan State and the undisputed Big Ten champions of the conference. Indiana with a dynamite victory tonight for this final home ball game of the 1993 campaign.
It was a fitting end for the 4 seniors that they won the title in their final home game, and the crowd stayed in their seats to see the presentation of the trophy and to hear the seniors in the annual senior night speeches.
We've already done one job. We've won a preseason NIT championship. Now we've won the Big Ten. Now we're going to try for the big thing, for the whole thing.
I want to thank the fans here at IU for all the support you've given me personally. I think this is one of the few places in the world in 1993 that that rewards a kid for just going out and just giving his best every day.
I know that it seemed like I've been here since the Branch McCracken years. You know, and I'd like to thank him for recruiting me. And but seriously, I mean, the time seriously has gone fast. So many great things have happened. I've had so many fun times, so many exciting moments. I just hope I can remember them all for as long as I live. What IU basketball and Indiana University has done for me, I'm very thankful.
While I'm on subject of fans, you fans have been wonderful. My 4 years here, you did a great job in supporting us. I hope you just continue to follow us down the road, and I hope we bring you better things to come.
The last 4 years here have been a dream for me. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So kids out there, I mean, if you have dreams, you have aspirations of being a basketball player, of being a doctor and lawyer, I mean, it's all possible if you just work hard.
My teammates who I've been with for 4 years now, they did a great job in making me the player I am, and the 3 other seniors, the players they are. We play well together, and we still have a lot more games to go, fellas.
I'd like to thank my teammates who have been, very, very good friends to me. We've helped each other, and hopefully I've helped them, and we've gotten along really well, and it's been something I'll never forget.
All right, as players here at IU, I mean, you sometimes you lay in your bed and you just fantasize about things you want to accomplish, and I've accomplished a lot of my goals, and I fell short one time. I hope you all remember. It was against Illinois. I mean, I've dreamed about dunking it, and I missed it, but now that I have you all here, I'm about to do it one more time. We're going to try it again.
Indiana then traveled to Wisconsin with the title in hand to finish the regular season against the Badgers. IU did not suffer a post-title letdown and jumped out to a 12-2 lead. But the Badgers came back, and when Jeff Peterson hit this layup, Wisconsin was down by just 1 at 20-19. Indiana then went on a 16-2 run, and on this Damon Bailey layup, the Hoosiers led 36-21. IU also scored the last 9 points of the half and led 53-31 at the break. In the second half, Wisconsin came back and cut the lead to 9 at the midway point in this Michael Finley three-pointer. With 7 minutes remaining, Finley hit this three, and the lead was cut to 6. Damon Bailey hit a three with 6 minutes to go, and the lead was back to 9. The Badgers never again would get the game back under 6, and IU, as in so many Big Ten games previously, made their free throws down the stretch and won 87-80 to finish the regular campaign 28-3 and 17-1 in the Big Ten. It was now on to the NCAA tournament, and all Hoosier fans got their wish as Indiana received the #1 seed in the Midwest Regional and were to begin play in the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis. The first opponent was Wright State, probably the best of 4 number 16 seeds in the tourney. The Raiders had been a high-scoring team throughout the year and appeared not to be in awe of the Hoosiers when Bill Edwards hit this three-pointer early in the contest, taking a 3-2 lead. Wright State stayed close, and at the second TV timeout, Indiana was up only 15-13. However, the Hoosiers outscored Wright State 16-2 over the next 6 minutes and led 31-15. When Mattenover hit this layup with 4 minutes to go, the Hoosiers were up by 19, their largest lead of the half. The Raiders cut the lead to 10 in this jumper by Mike Nahar early in the second half, but it was then time for another Calbert Cheaney incredible performance. He scored the first 13 points of the second half, and by the time he was done, the Hoosiers led 58-37, and the game was over. The Hoosiers won 97-54, and the 43-point margin of victory was the largest in Midwest regional play and in Indiana history for a tournament game. Alan Henderson played his first minutes in suffering his knee injury and scored 4 points and grabbed 3 rebounds, while Pat Knight added emphasis to the win, slamming home 2 of his 4 points. The Hoosiers then had to play Xavier, a team that had won 23 games during the regular season and had 2 excellent big men in the middle in Aaron Williams and Brian Grant. Xavier also owned a 5-1 record in the Hoosier Dome. The Musketeers went ahead 15-14 on this jumper by Michael Hawkins at the 11:46 mark, but Indiana then scored the next 7 points to take a 6-point lead. When Cheney made this layup with 4 minutes to go, the Hoosiers were up 13 at 32-19. Xavier was known for their late first half runs, and they once again made another one, outscoring IU 12-3 over the last 3:50, and Indiana found themselves with only a 35-31 lead at the break. It didn't take Xavier long to tie the game when Jamie Gladden hit this jumper 3 minutes into the half. Mattenover's layup started a 7-point run for the Hoosiers, and midway through the half, IU was up by 9 when Greg Graham converted this 3-point play. Indiana's lead stayed at 9 with this Pat Graham jump shot, but Xavier went on a 10-2 run, and on this dunk by Aaron Williams, Xavier was down by only a point. Cheney answered with a jumper at the 5-minute mark, and the lead was back to 5. Xavier cut the lead to 2 on baskets by Gladden and Hawkins, and the teams traded baskets. Damon Bailey stepped up and hit these 2 free throws with 51 seconds left to give IU a 4-point lead, and Xavier never got closer than 3 as the Hoosiers won 73-70 and advanced to the Midwest Regional Finals in St. Louis. The Hoosiers' opponent in the semifinal was the Louisville Cardinals. Although the teams are only 90 miles apart, they had never faced each other in the NCAA tournament. The teams treated the fans to a well-played first half that featured a fast-paced style of action. Indiana led 16-11 at the first TV timeout, but James Brewer's three-pointer cut the lead to 18-16. Until Mattenover made this turnaround halfway through the first 20 minutes to give IU a 27-21 lead, no team had larger than a 4-point lead. The intensity of the game was showing when Calbert Cheaney and Dwayne Morton exchanged words following Cheney's block of a Morton dunk. Louisville cut the lead back to 1 at 39-38, but the Hoosiers went on an 11-5 run to finish the half with a 50-43 lead. Indiana opened up a 9-point lead early in the second half, but that was cut to 3 when Greg Minor hit this three-pointer with 13:38 to play. With Indiana's lead at 67-62, the Hoosiers went on a run that would seal the game. 3 straight baskets by Calbert Cheaney made the score 73-62, and Louisville coach Denny Crum had to get a timeout. Louisville could get no closer than 9 the rest of the way, and the Hoosiers went on to win 82-69 as Cheney scored an NCAA career-high 32 points. Indiana was now only 1 victory away from a return trip to the Final Four and the Kansas Jayhawks were the only thing that stood in the way of a visit to New Orleans. Kansas' inside game proved to be too much for the Hoosiers in the beginning, going into Eric Pauley, Greg Ostertag, and Richard Scott as the Jayhawks jumped out to a 15-7 lead just 5 minutes into the contest. And when Adonis Jordan hit this three-pointer with 6.5 minutes to go, KU was up by 8 points. Indiana went to work over the next 3 minutes and not only caught Kansas but took a 31-30 lead on this Cheney layup. The teams went back and forth the rest of the half, and Kansas led 38-34 at the break. Kansas scored the first 4 points of the second half, and the Hoosiers were again down by 8. In the next 6 minutes, Indiana fought back and took a 50-48 lead and appeared ready to put away the Jayhawks just like they had done so many times during the season. But it wasn't meant to be on this day. Kansas scored the next 10 points and took a 58-50 lead. Greg Graham cut the lead to 3 at 76-73 after a layup with 1:36 to go. But Kansas scored the next 6 points, and the game and the season were over. The Hoosiers ended the season 31-4, tying the winning mark of the 1975 Indiana team, who also won 31 games for the second most in school history. Throughout the year, the Hoosiers overcame many hurdles, like the injuries to Pat Graham and Alan Henderson. But what they accomplished during the 1992-93 campaign will never be forgotten by Indiana fans. This was a total team effort, but without the 4 seniors, the championships that were won and records that were broken would have never been possible. These seniors became the all-time winningest team in Big Ten history over a 3-year span, registering 87 victories in their last 3 years, breaking the mark of the 86 set by the Indiana teams of 1974, 75, and 76. They won 2 Big Ten championships, including an undisputed crown in 1993, a preseason NIT title, and made 1 trip to the Final Four and 3 trips to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. And this group was led by the College Basketball Player of the Year, Calbert Cheaney. He won every Player of the Year award there was to win and was named to everyone's All-America team. The native of Evansville leaves Indiana with his name all over the record books, and not only Indiana, but in the Big Ten record book as well. Greg Graham enjoyed his best season as a Hoosier and averaged over 16 points per game. He became the first player in Big Ten history to lead the conference in field goal and three-point field goal percentage in the same year. Graham was a first-team all-conference selection and was also the conference's Defensive Player of the Year. Matt Nover saved his best for last as he averaged a career-high 11 points and almost 6 rebounds per game. Without his presence on the inside, especially on defense, the Hoosiers might not have been as successful as they were in '93. Chris Reynolds rounded out this senior class. The steady ball handler played a role for the Hoosiers and played it well. Whether he was starting or coming off the bench, Reynolds gave his all every game and was an important part of the Hoosier machine the last 4 years. Damon Bailey, Calbert Cheaney, Brian Evans, Greg Graham, Pat Graham, Alan Henderson, Pat Knight, Todd Leary, Matt Nover, Chris Reynolds, and Todd Lindeman, who sat the season as a redshirt, all had a special part in this remarkable season. One of the great things about this team was that in any given game, someone else would step up and be a main contributor. A championship commitment was expected, and that's what they gave all Indiana fans. But what made this year truly special were the thrills and exciting moments that no one will ever forget.